Today we are going to do the approaches to management, the classical, modern, scientific and system approach. आज हम सारी approaches discuss करेंगे which are related to the business organization and management. The first is before going to the classical approach, there are some approaches to the management. The first is quantitative approach, second IT approach to management, system approach, contingency or approach, scientific management approach, management process or administrative management process, human relation approach and the behavioral science approach. आज हम ये सारे अप्रोच डिस्कस करेंगे. Now, management affecting people, technology, values, and human wants has attracted the attention of psychologists, anthropologists, sociologists, mathematicians, economists, politicians, scientists, physicists, biologists, business administration scholars, and even practicing managers. So, as a result, various schools of management, each employing certain beliefs, values, and disciplines, have come into existence. Now, approaches to the management is the first is empirical or case approach management by the custom school. This is based on the belief that experience is the best guide to knowledge. This approach analyzes management by studying the case histories of successful managers. So a study of the successes and the failures of the outstanding manager is made. Whenever a problem arises, the manager would seek guidance by referring to the experience of those managers who would have solved similar problems. Thus, no new strategy is evolved and little effort is made to blaze new trails. So further is forgotten that what fits one enterprise may not fit another. इस बेसिकली अप्रोच करना, अगर एक लाइन में मीनिंग समझे तो ये अप्रोच है कि जितना आप एक्सपीरियंस करोगे ना उतना आप नॉलेज गेन करोगे. जैसे जैसे आपका एक्सपीरियंस बढ़ेगा वैसे वैसे आपकी नॉलेज बढ़ेगी. दिस इज द अप्रोच व्हिच इज गिवन बाय दिस केस अप्रोच मैनेजमेंट बाय द कस्टम स्कूल. सेकंड आता है अगर हम क्लासिकल अप्रोच की बात करें ओके. सो क्लासिकल अप्रोच की बात करें पहले तो क्लासिकल अप्रोच है वो बेस्ड ऑन द रूल ऑफ द थंब. कि बेसिकली क्लासिकल अप्रोच क्या कहती है कि मैनेजमेंट इज अ प्रोसेस कंसिस्टेंट ऑफ interrelated functions performed to achieve the desired goals. From the experience of the managers in different organizations, principles or guidelines can be derived. These principles are basic truths which can be applied in different organizations to improve the managerial efficiency. Managers can be developed through the formal education and the training. People are motivated mainly by incentives and penalty. Therefore, managers use and control economic rewards. There should be no conflict between the individuals and the organization. So in case of conflict, interest of the organization should prevail. So basically, the classical approach it offers a convenient framework for the education and the training of the managers. First, जो observational method है of case study का is helpful in drawing common principles out of the past experiences with some relevant for the further application. Second merit है इस approach का कि focus on attention on what managers actually do. Third, this approach highlights the universal nature of the management. And the last, it provides a scientific basis for the management practice. And there are also some limitations there. It offers a mechanistic framework that undermines the role of human factor. Secondly, the environment dynamics and their effect on the management have been discounted. Thirdly, there is a positive danger in relying too much on past experience because a principle or technique found effective in the past may not fit a situation of the future. For the totality of the real situation can seldom be incorporated in a case study. Lastly, the classical approach is based on oversimplified assumption and its principles are vague and contradictory. So ये थी आपकी classical approach. Next आती है आपकी the interpersonal behavior approach, the behavioral approach. कि since management involves getting things done through people, this approach concentrates on the human aspects of management. The school believes that what people work together to accomplish objectives, people should understand one another. This seeks to solve problems by applying psychology to management. Thus, this approach lays emphasis on the importance of the leadership, motivation of the people at work, and the influence of the work environment. Basically, जो वाली अप्रोच थी वो इस पर बिलीव करती थी कि आप जितना एक्सपीरियंस गेन करोगे उतनी आपकी नॉलेज बढ़ेगी. ये अप्रोच ये कहती है इम्पोर्टेंस क्या है लीडरशिप की, पीपल का मोटिवेशन लेवल क्या है काम करने में, और जो वर्क एनवायरनमेंट कैसे इन्फ्लुएंस करता है. दैट इज द बिहेवियरल अप्रोच. दैट इज द behavioral approach. और आती है आपकी the group behavior approach. That is the social goal. Group behavior. Okay, this approach is concerned primarily with the behavior among individuals. As a name just है, the group behavior. कि जो person है एक belong करते एक particular social group को have common feelings and attitudes and they form an informal organization. So problems created by them cannot be resolved by the authorities in the formal organization. The school of thought therefore attaches importance to the need for the cooperation and positive interaction among such groups of people so that the workflow will be smooth. So this is the group behavior approach कि आप एक ग्रुप में जो काम कर रहे हो पर्टिकुलर उस अप्रोच की बात कर रहे हो कि they have common feelings, common attitude, they form an informal organization. That is the group behavior approach. Next है आपकी operational approach. This approach views management as an activity based on certain unique management functions. So management is regarded as a process for getting things done through the functions of the planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. So it involves a coordination of human and the material resources. Human and the material resources. These functions of the management are the universal regardless of the type of enterprise. According to the school of the thought, management no doubt makes use of other social and the biological sciences, but they are made use of only to the extent they are relevant. And that the fundamental functions of the management as stated above constitute the core of the management study. Core of the management study. Next is the decision theory approach. This approach concentrates on the decision-making function of the management. According to this, the central focus of the management is on decision-making. The decision of what to achieve and how to achieve it are the real challenges before a manager. So it is concerned not only with the making of decision but also with everything that precedes a decision and everything that follows it. So basically, decision making function is the approach of this decision theory. Now, next है आपकी system approach to management. This approach regards an enterprise as a system. A system is composed of related and interdependent elements forming a unitary whole. Every system is made up of several subsystems. So similarly, an organization is also viewed as a system made up of several parts in the form of departments. While each department is independent and accomplishes specific predetermined goals, all are coordinated by the top management. For example, to decide on expanding the productive capacity, data from others department in charge of product planning, market research, finance, etc. are collected because the action of one department influences the action of others. As the main focus of system approach is on the dependence and interrelatedness of the various subsystems. Each aspect should not be studied in isolation but must be examined in relation to the entire system as a whole. Now, the next is the mathematical or the management science approach. If the school believes that managing or planning or decision making can be expressed in mathematical symbols and relationships, modern managers face problems arising out of the increase in the size and the complexity of the organizational structures. In the United States of America and other industrially advanced countries, executives are turning increasingly to computer applications for finding solutions to their problems. The scientific and technological advance have brought management and mathematics closer to each other. So main feature क्या है इसके कि since management is concerned with the problem solving, so it has to make use of the mathematical tools and the technique. वो ये कह रहे हैं कि दोनों का कनेक्शन इसलिए है कि मैनेजमेंट का कंसर्न होता है प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने से और प्रॉब्लम कैसे सॉल्व की जा सकती है मैथमेटिकल टूल्स और टेक्निक्स से. सेकंड बात करें हम कि different problems are the capable of being qualified and expressed in the forms of the models. So management problems can be described in the mathematical symbols. Operation research, mathematical tools, simulation, and the model building are the basic methodologies developed by the school of the thought. But with all these advantages, one must be conscious of the limitations of the school of the thought. So mathematical models can never replace some sound judgment. They can be at best serve as tool helping the process of the judgment. There are other complicated areas of management which involve people. So they cannot be reduced to any mathematical formula. Human factor in management is not less important. Is not less important. Next आता है आपका the socio-technical system approach. Socio-technical systems approach. So this approach is based on the belief that personal attitudes and the group behavior are influenced by the technical system, in which people work. So this approach emphasizes on the production, office operations, etc. The change in the technical system is called for if the social and the technical system don't go hand in hand. The next is the contingency approach. This approach is the very latest approach of the existing approaches. According to this approach, there is no single way or the best way to address a given problem situation. This approach is opposed to one size fits all formula approaches. So managers should not labor under the notion that the management principles and techniques have universal applicability. So they have to deal with the different situations differently. The approach one should adopt depends on the characteristics or requirements of the situation in which a problem crops up. For example, where there is a low productivity in a facility, to classical theory prescribe higher wages for the workers, while neoclassical theory favors enhancing the morale, motivation, and the job satisfaction of the workers. But manager pursuing a contingency approach shall not apply either theory for the entire manpower. He would increase the wage for the low skilled and unskilled workers while he would introduce alternative work options, participative management, and the employee empowerment for the talented employee. Similarly, autocratic leadership is workable in the case of the electorate workers, whereas participative leader may work wonders in the case of the skilled and the talented worker. And Lee's fair leadership is not Lee's fair leadership is suitable to the employees in R&D way. So likewise, financial incentive is more appropriate for the employees at the lower level of the organizational hierarchy, while non-financial incentives like ESOP, variable pay, career advancements, and so on may prove to be highly effective for the knowledge workers and the employees at the higher echelons of the management. Now there is scientific management approaches also there. Because scientific management grew out of the need to increase the productivity. At the beginning of the 20th century, skilled labor in the United States was in short supply and it was necessary to improve the efficiency of the workers. So F.W. Taylor, who is the father of the scientific management, was a brilliant engineer and management scientist in the USA. So he worked at the Midwell Steel Works, Simon Swirling Mills in the USA for the several years. So he was sad to see the absurd and the wasteful ways of doing job in this organization. So he was convinced that there was a science of doing things in the physical work at the shop door level. So in order to develop scientific and the systematic ways of doing things and to optimize efficiency, so Taylor conducted a series of the experiments. His objective was to provide a scientific basis for designing and performing jobs. So it advocated a detailed scientific study of each job to determine the best ways of doing it. So he believed that the management is a science resting on well recognized and the clearly defined principles. He exhorted managers to adopt scientific and the systematic approach to the management problems in place of rule of thumb or trial and error methods. Today, bureaucracy is taken to mean vast interpersonal organization that put interpersonal efficiency ahead of human need. The notion of bureaucracy has becoming associated with stifling rules and endless red tape. However, in Weber's time, the emphasis was on improving efficiency and consistency, whereas in the modern time, the stress is on innovation and flexibility. So further, there are organizations that still incorporate most of the Weber's element. Now, what are the principles of the scientific management? Okay. So what are the principles of this scientific management? There are some principles of the scientific management. The first is develop a true science for each manager of the method. Each element of a job and the motions required to perform it should be scientifically analyzed to determine and use the most efficient way of doing it. Intuition, experience are replaced by the scientific management. Second, job specialization or the division of the labor. Management and the workers. Management should take over all the work for which they are better fitted than workers. He asserted that management should assume exclusive responsibility for planning and the workers they should assume doing. So they are saying पे काम मत करो reality पे काम करो. They are saying that. Third is selection, training and development of the workers. So proper selection of employees. Taylor suggested an almost equal division of the work and the responsibility between the management and the workers. Management should take over all the work for which they are better fitted than workers. He asserted that management should assume exclusive responsibility for planning and the workers they should assume doing. So they are saying कि assumptions पे काम मत करो, reality पे काम करो. They are saying that. Third is scientific selection, training and development of the workers. So proper selection of employees best suited for the job would improve productivity. Scientific training should be arranged to develop each employee to his greatest efficiency and the prosperity. First, the qualification required for each job be clearly specified, and this should be used as a basis for the selection and the training of the employees. When a worker works on a job for which he is both physically and mentally fit, he can earn higher wages and the mental satisfaction. देखो ultimately हर कोई work कर रहा है for the wages. If you get the higher wages, so there is a mental satisfaction over there. And if you are mentally satisfied with anything, you will do the job very well. Next is close cooperation between the management and the workers. So it is to ensure that the work is being done in accordance with the principle of the scientific management. So harmonious relationship between the management and the labor is necessary for the complete harmony of interest. Taylor advocated a complete mental revolution on the part of both managers and the workers. Managers should adopt an enlightened attitude and share the gains of the productivity with the workers. And workers on their part should work with the discipline and the loyalty. Next आती है new classical approach, neoclassical approach. That is also a behavioral approach, which we have discussed. There is an experiment, Hawthorne experiments are there. George Elton Myers considered the father of the neoclassical approach. He was the leader of the team which conducted the famous Hawthorne experiment. Experiment is given as below: the illumination experiment. The object of this experiment was to assess the effect of the illumination on the employee's output. the employee's output. So two groups are selected from among the employees. One group was placed in the room where lighting remained constant. Another place in the room where lighting varied periodically. So surprising, the output of both the group increased steadily. So it was concluded that the lighting was a minor factor and there was other more important factor influencing the output, that is the productivity. So at this stage, Mayo and his team was invited to conduct further studies. Mass interview program. A large number of workers were interviewed to judge their attitudes and opinions on the factor influencing productivity. So it was found that the opportunity to talk freely about things that are important to the workers and had a positive effect on their morale and the productivity. नेक्स्ट है आपकी सिस्टम अप्रोच. System approach. Vinier's pioneering work on the cybernetics developed the concept of the system controlled by the information feedback. He described an adaptive system as mainly dependent upon the measurement and the correction through the feedback. So the theory consists of general principles for understanding the physical, mechanical, biological, and the social entities and the relationships among the A.K. Rice, T.S. Poff, Robert Picard, and the Kantham made significant contribution to the development of the system approach. The features of the system approach is an organization is a unified and the powerful system consisting of the several interconnected, interacting, and the independent parts. Second, the parts and the components of the system are called as subsystems, and the position and the function of each subsystem can be analyzed and understood only in the relation to the other subsystem and to the organization as a whole. Similarly, the organization as a system can be analyzed and understood by the reference to its subsystems. Each subsystem derives its strength by its association and interaction with the other subsystems. So every system has a boundary that separates it from environment. The boundary determines which parts are internal to the organization, which are external. For instance, employees are within the boundary, whereas creditors and the customers are external to the business forms. And systems are of two types, the open system and the closed system. Open system क्या कहता है कि continually interact with the environment. And the closed system कहता है self-contained and isolated from the environment. क्योंकि ओपन सिस्टम बेसिकली क्या कहना चाह रहा है कि आप इन्वायरमेंट से इंटरेक्ट करो, बेसिकली जितना भी एक्सटर्नल आउटसाइड द फैक्टर्स है उन पे फोकस्ड रहो. और क्लोज सिस्टम क्या कहते हैं, सेल्फ कंटेन्ड रहो. सेल्फ कंटेन्ड का मतलब है कि अपने आप से, मतलब उन्हें एक्सटर्नल इन्वायरमेंट आइसोलेटेड रहना फ्रॉम द इन्वायरमेंट. दैट इज द क्लोज सिस्टम. So this is a system approach. But there is also limitation in the system approach. There are four limitations. The first is a lack of unified theory. Lack of unified theory मतलब कि system approach doesn't offer a unified theory which can be applied to all the types of the organization. कि जितने भी organization के types है उसमें सब में एक ही unified theory apply नहीं की जा सकती. ठीक है. Second क्या कहता है, vague and abstract. Vague and abstract. ये जो system approach है is too abstract to with much use of practicing managers. It indicates interrelationship and interdependence between the various parts of the organization. But it fails to spell out the precise relationship between the different subsystems. Third, narrow view of the organization environment interface. The system approach recognizes interface between an organization and its environment, but it doesn't represent a complete view of this interface. And the last is the limited application. The system approach doesn't provide an action framework applicable to all types of the organization. So the system approach is often criticized as being too abstract and the vague. It cannot be directly and easily applied to the practical problems. And the last is the contingency approach. And the last approach is the contingency approach. अगर मैं एक लाइन में समझाऊं ना तो कॉन्टिजेंसी अप्रोच ये कहती है सिस्टम अप्रोच वी हैव डिस्कस्ड राइट नाउ दिस इज अ सिस्टम अप्रोच the modern approach to understand management is a system approach the organization views it as a system ये we have discussed next देखो this is a diagram you can see कि how complex the organization is एंड तो फर्स्ट डायग्राम क्या कहता है प्लानिंग से आप ऑर्गेनाइजिंग में गए ऑर्गेनाइजिंग से स्टाफिंग में फिर डायरेक्टिंग में फिर कंट्रोलिंग में अगेन यू गो टू द प्लानिंग क्योंकि यू हैव टू रीथिंक ओवर हियर दैट इज द कंट्रोलिंग डज एंड देन प्लानिंग डू and now this is the last approach this is the contingency or the situational approach अगर मैं आपको इसका एक लाइन में समझाऊं तो ये कहती है कि आपको ना एज पर द सिचुएशन एक पॉलिसी डिफाइन करनी चाहिए कि ऐसा नहीं है कि आप कुछ आपको पॉलिसी दी गई है आप उसको फॉलो कर रहे हो और उसको उस अप्रोच को फॉलो कर रहे हो नहीं दे आर सेइंग कि ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में बहुत सारी सिचुएशन क्रिएट होती है जब आप एक कंपनी में काम कर रहे हो वहां पे लॉट्स ऑफ द सिचुएशंस क्रिएटेड तो सिचुएशन की क्या डिमांड है उस टाइम पे वो डिसीजन लेना चाहिए दैट इज द कॉन्टिजेंसी अप्रोच सो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन क्या कहता है इट्स बिहेव अ सिचुएशन डिमांड्स इन अदर वर्ड डिसीजन मेकिंग इज कॉन्टिजेंट ऑन द सिचुएशंस एज सिचुएशन चेंजेस सॉल्यूशन आल्सो चेंज अब ये थोड़ा है कि लकीर की फकीर है कि जो लिख दिया हमें वही करना है नहीं अगर सिचुएशन चेंज हो रही है तो हमें सोल्यूशन ऑटोमेटिकली चेंज करने चाहिए ये नहीं कि हम एक ही सोल्यूशन पे फोकस कर रहे हैं हमारी सिचुएशनल अप्रोच और कंटिजेंसी अप्रोच यही कहती है कि जैसे सिचुएशन चेंज हो रही है सोल्यूशन को चेंज कर दो सो दिस इज द लेटेस्ट अप्रोच टू द प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग आज के टाइम में जितने भी बिजनेसेस हैं वो इस अप्रोच को फॉलो कर रहे हैं कंटिजेंसी और द सिचुएशनल अप्रोच को क्योंकि ये लेटेस्ट अप्रोच है एंड केस स्टडी अप्रोच ये भी कहती है इट इज फॉलोड इन द today's premier business schools across the world has emanated from this thinking even it's a worldwide approach एक इसको पूरे वर्ल्ड इस अप्रोच को फॉलो कर रहा है बिकॉज इट हैज emanated फ्रॉम द थिंकिंग क्योंकि थिंकिंग से एलैबोरेट हो रही है क्योंकि जब आप सिचुएशन का सोल्यूशन निकालोगे तो यू आर थिंकिंग ना तो मैनेजमेंट प्रॉब्लम्स वेरी विद द सिचुएशन एंड रिक्वायर्ड टू बी हैंडल्ड डिफरेंटली एज सिचुएशन डिमांड्स so where the problems are of the repetitive nature so this approach proves very useful now however all the problems are not likely of the same nature and this approach also has limitations the functioning of the organization is not a matter of the manager's choice it is contingent on the external or the internal environment or the both so under this approach managers identify the variables that critically influence managerial behavior in particular and organizational performance in general and address the problem associated with these variables. So this way there was an improvement over the system approach. तो कहीं ना कहीं जो आपकी सिस्टम अप्रोच है ना उसको एक इम्प्रूवमेंट लेवल लेकर आए कंटिजेंट अप्रोच Okay, the contingency approach is that there is no single best way of managing applicable in all the situations. The best solution is the one that is responsive to the Peculiarities of the given situation. Significant differences exist between one substantial and others. Therefore, management should deal with the different situation in the different ways. In other words, the effectiveness of any technique is contingent on the given situation. The conditions and the complexities of the situation determine which approach is applicable and effective. The approach or technique should be chosen keeping in view the peculiarities of the situation. So there should be a match or fit between the situation variable and the management variable. So it is the responsibility of the management to analyze the contingency or the conditions peculiar to each situation and then choosing the right approach to deal with it. So there are some features of the contingency approach. Key management is entirely situational. The application and the effectiveness of any technique is contingent on the situation. In other words, the condition and the complexity of the situation determine which major technique is applicable and effective. This is the first merit. Second, management should therefore match or fit its approach to the requirements of the particular situation. To be effective, management policies and the practices must respond to the environment changes. The organizational structure, the leadership style, the control system, all should be designed to fit the particular situation. Next, since management success depends on its ability to cope with the environment, it should sharpen its diagnostic skill so as to anticipate and comprehend the environmental changes. And the last feature is that managers should understand there is no best way to manage. They must not consider the management principles and technical universal. So this is the contingency approach of the business organization and management. Now, a contingency approach की कुछ criticisms भी हैं. I always said there are pros and cons are always there. So the cons of the contingency approach is there. The first is it all depends on the situation. जैसे कि मैंने justify किया कि this approach says that as per the situation demand solution will be there. So it all depends on the situation. So manager is swamped with so many ideas which are humanly impossible to comprehend. He has no tested and proven prescriptions to depend upon. Critics also point out that without a theoretical foundation, it is almost impossible to reach to gain valuable information or develop a knowledge base. Some critics argue that the approach doesn't incorporate all aspects of the system theory. The approach is very complex and suffers from the paucity of the literature. So it suggests a reactive strategy for coping with the environmental changes. A proactive approach would be effective for the managers. And it also said that there's nothing new in the contingency theory because even classical theorists like Fayol caution managers to use principles in the light of changing the conditions. So the contingency approach doesn't recognize the influence of the management concept and principles on the environment. Moreover, literature on the contingency approach is yet not adequate. So these are the criticisms of the contingency approach. Okay, the next is empirical approach. Okay, class. There can be a question that comes in your exam. Important from the exam point of view is that system approach and the contingency approach का comparison. What is the comparison between the system approach and the contingency approach? तो कहीं ना कहीं पहले थोड़ा सा दोनों को एक्सप्लेन करेंगे सिस्टम अप्रोच को एंड कॉन्टिजेंसी अप्रोच को फिर उसके कुछ फीचर्स एक्सप्लेन करेंगे then pros of the system approach and the pros of the contingency approach, 2-3 points, then cons of the 2-3 points of the cons of the system approach and 2-3 points of the cons of the contingency approach. In this way you can compare the system approach and the contingency approach. So हाँ इतने बड़े खराटे क्यों empirical approach कहती है according to this approach management is the study of experiences of managers. The knowledge based on the experience of the successful manager can be applied by the other managers in solving problems in future and in decision makings. So basically जो empirical school is based on the analysis of the past experiences and uses the case study method of the study and the research. Manager can get an idea of what to do and how by studying manager situations of the past. They can develop analytical and the problem solving skills. They can understand and learn to apply effective techniques in the comparable situations. No one can deny the value of analyzing past experience to obtain a lesson for the future. But management, unlike law, is not a science based on the present and the future situation exactly resembling those of the past are unlikely to occur. Indeed, there is a positive danger in relying too much on the past experience for the simple reason that a technique found right in the past may be far from an exact fit for a somewhat similar situation of the future. So, this is the empirical approach. Decision theory approaches we have discussed, mathematical approach we have discussed, operational approach we have discussed, system approach we have discussed. Now, the last topic is the importance of the management theory. We have discussed the 9 approaches. Now we are discussing the importance of the management theory. The knowledge of the management theory and techniques is important in order to increase efficiency, crystallize the nature of the management, improve the research in the management, coordinating the efforts of people so that the objectives of the individual get translated into the social accomplishments and the social goals of the organization can be attained. Okay. So scientific management theory जो मैंने भी आपको W टेलर की बताई, we have discussed. So now I'm going to discussing the 14 principles of the management, which are given by the FIOL. FIOL में 14 principles दिए थे. The first is the division of the work. The work should be divided among individuals and the group so that everyone can focus on the special portion of the task. FIOL believed that work specialization is the best way to use the human resources and organization. Second principle उसने दिया authority and responsibility. फर्स्ट है डिवीजन ऑफ वर्क, जो हम काफी क्लासेस से डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि काम को इंडिविजुअल ग्रुप में डिवाइड किया जाए. सेकेंड, अथॉरिटी एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, कि आप किसके लिए अथॉरिटी हो, किसके लिए आप रिस्पॉन्सिबल हो. कि अथॉरिटी एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आर क्लोजली रिलेटेड. एज पर द फ्यूल, authority is the right to give orders and the power to get obedience. So responsibility is about being accountable. Hence, both authority and responsibility are the coextensive. Third आता है आपका discipline. To ensure obedience and respect for the superiors and rules, procedures, and policy, Fuel declares that the discipline requires good superiors at all the levels. कि डिसिप्लिन से गुड सुपीरियर लेवल क्रिएट होता है इन ऑल द लेवल्स. नेक्स्ट, यूनिटी ऑफ कमांड. Unity of command is an employee should receive order from one superior, that is the one boss only. If one employee receive command from the several superior, तो it lead to the confusion and the disorder. कि काफी सारे bosses होंगे तो हम confuse हो जाएंगे हमें किसको command करनी है. तो unity of command ये कहता है कि there must be a one boss only. कि employee should receive order only from the one boss only. Next आता है आपका unity of direction. Unity of direction क्या कहता है? Group of activities with the common objective should have one plan. They only have one plan and be headed by one person, that is manager. Unity of direction is different from the unity of command. वहां पे वो बोलता है कि आप अकाउंटेबल से वन बोस को हो, लेकिन यूनिटी ऑफ डायरेक्शन जो बोलता है वो ये बोलते हैं कि देयर शुड बी ओनली वन प्लान. कि एक कॉमन ऑब्जेक्टिव के साथ आपका एक ही प्लान होना चाहिए जो कि एक पर्सन के द्वारा हेड किया जाना चाहिए. दैट शुड बी अ मैनेजर. नेक्स्ट आता है आपका सबऑर्डिनेशन. सिक्स्थ प्रिंसिपल क्या आता है आपका? सबऑर्डिनेशन. की इंटरेस्ट ऑफ वन पर्सन शुड नॉट टेक प्रायोरिटी ओवर द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एज अ होल. कि आप एज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन काम कर रहे हो तो वहां पे आपका पर्सनल इंटरेस्ट मतलब वेरी नहीं करना चाहिए. दैट इज सबऑर्डिनेशन. नेक्स्ट आता है आपका सेवंथ प्रिंसिपल, रेम्यूनरेशन. कि all the employees should be paid fairly and based on the work done, skills, knowledge, experience, cost of living and other factors yielding satisfaction to both employee and the firm. कि रेम्यूनरेशन इस तरीके से फेयर होना चाहिए जो एम्प्लॉय के लिए भी सेटिस्फाइड हो और फर्म के लिए भी सेटिस्फाइड हो. एथ प्रिंसिपल आता है आपका सेंट्रलाइजेशन. स्पीड से करेंगे. देयर 14. Pure defined centralization as lowering the importance, authority of the subordinate role, and decentralization at increasing the importance. The degree to which centralization or decentralization adopted should be based on the specific organization. That is centralization or decentralization. Next, scalar chain. It is the chain of the superiors and subordinates from the highest level to the lowest level for the purpose of the communication. It decides the issue of the authority who is superior to whom. So it refers to the superior subordinate relations throughout the organization. The existence of a scalar chain to it are necessary for the organizational success. That is the scalar chain. कि आप highest to lowest काम करो. ये मैं already discuss कर चुकी हूँ डिटेल में काफी. नेक्स्ट आपका ऑर्डर. 10th प्रिंसिपल क्या कहता है? ऑर्डर. कि ऑर्डर रिलेट्स टू द अरेंजमेंट ऑफ द थिंग्स एंड द पीपल. Everything should be in its place and there should be a place for everything. So everyone in the organization should be properly praised. Basically, ki right man at the right job. On the contrary, disorder would lead to the confusion, inefficiency, and failure to achieve the set objectives. And the 11th principle is the equity. कि management must treat everyone with equality, which is achieved through a combination of the kindliness and the justice. This is the equity. And the stability of the tenure of the personnel. कि management should retain employees who are skilled and efficient in their work, provide them clarity about their tenure so that both work and employee are the stable. कि जिससे आपके वर्क और एम्प्लॉय दोनों स्टेबल है. there must be the clarity about the tenure. That is the stability of the tenure of the personnel. And the 13th principle क्या कहता है आपका? इनिशिएटिव. इनिशिएटिव कि मैनेजमेंट शुड एनकरेज एम्प्लॉयज टेकिंग इनिशिएटिव. इनिशिएटिव मतलब होता है कि आपको पहल करनी चाहिए, कि आपको हर चीज में आगे रहना चाहिए. तो मैनेजमेंट शुड एनकरेज एम्प्लॉय, मोटिवेट एम्प्लॉय कि टू टेक इनिशिएटिव दैट इज डूइंग थिंग्स आउट ऑफ देयर रेगुलर स्कोप ऑफ द वर्क विद द सेल्फ डायरेक्शन एंड द मोटिवेशन. With the self-direction and the motivation. That is the initiative. And the last 14th principle of the FIOL is the esprit de corps. कि management should strive to achieve team spirit and teamwork amongst the employees. Team spirit is of the great importance to accomplish tasks. So FIOL did not make this list as an exhaustive and all-encompassing list. Hence, we need to have an understanding that there should be more principle added based on the increased understanding of the subject. So, ये थे FIOL के 14 principles. Okay, there's a comparison between the Taylor and the FIOL. The first FW Taylor, जो मैंने अभी ऊपर principle discuss किया, कि he is known as the father of the scientific management. And Henry FIOL, he is known as the father of the functional and the modern management. FW Taylor, he worked from the bottom to the top level. But Henry FIOL, he worked from top to the bottom level. Third difference is he gave more emphasis to shop and the factory management, that is the time motion study. Or Henry FIOL gave more emphasis to the office and the management process as a whole. And the fourth difference is his main concern was to increase the efficiency of the workers and managers through scientific observations and the measurements. And Henry FIOL's main concern was to develop universal principles of the general management and the functions of the managers, developing a systematic theory of the management. So, ये था comparison between the Taylor and the FIOL. Okay, class, ध्यान से. So today we have discussed all the approaches to the management. आज हमने 9 approaches discuss की. Scientific management approach, second management approach, third human relation approach, fourth behavioral science approach, fifth quantitative or mathematical approach, sixth system approach, seventh contingency approach, eighth हमने operational approach discuss की and ninth हमने empirical approach discuss की. फिर हम लोगों ने FW टेलर डिस्कस किया है आज और हेनरी फ्योल के 14 प्रिंसिपल्स डिस्कस किया है, उनका डिफरेंस डिस्कस किया है. तो ये था आज के लिए आपका टॉपिक अप्रोचेस टू द मैनेजमेंट. इसके चार्जिंग उतारना. चार्ज. हाँ, थैंक यू.
सेशन एंड कर दूं मैं?
हाँ जी भैया, कर दीजिए.